to our discussion about migration. By a show of hands, who can tell me which countries we're going to start comparing? Natalia, can you tell me?
New Zealand, Mexico, and United States.
All right, so we have New Zealand, we have Mexico, and we have the United States. All right, so on the board is the chart that we're using on our piece of paper, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with just doing some similarities and differences between these three countries. And then after a while, we're only going to do like 3 or so. And then you guys will do your group work so that you all can work together and find more, okay? So what is something that we know about migration in New Zealand? Mal.
Some people had to come because they couldn't live in their homes anymore.
Okay, and do we know what we call those people? Refugees. All right, so we have refugees coming in. Good. Okay, so what about migration in the United States?
Doesn't the USA have refugees too?
Yes, they do, Natalia, good job. So that's not the United States. All right, so we also have refugees in the United States. Do we know where most of the refugees are coming from right now? Everybody in the class has to tell me, all right? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Syria, very good. All right. So, let's see. What about in Mexico? What is something that we can say that we've learned about Mexico? Sophia?
I know we talked about it, but I can't remember.
Okay, that's fine. So we're gonna go ahead and review that, okay? So in 1926, there was the Cristero Rebellion, and that was when Mexico was fighting against the government because they were anti-Catholic. Not good, right? So now that we've refreshed our memories, what can you tell me about it?
Why people were living in Mexico?
Right, because what did they want, do you know?
Because they wanted to have their own religion.
Very good. So they wanted to have their own religion. So we'll put religious purposes. So the reason that they were leaving Mexico, the proper name for it is religious persecution. Religious persecution is when people have to leave because they just want to believe in something that they can't in their own country. All right. Very good, guys. So now we're going to go ahead and get into our central question. I have it written here on the board, okay? So remember, we're talking about discrimination. So we're discussing whether or not discrimination is based on cultural differences or just because some people are racist. And neither one of those is okay. So, what about the story in New Zealand? Do we remember that story, Anna Sophia?
Yes. Is that the one about the boy from Ireland or a different one?
Yeah, that's the one. So can you tell us more about it so that the rest of our classmates remember?
Okay, it was about the boy who came from Ireland because he couldn't live there anymore. People were mean to him and called him names, so he didn't like it. But then he came to visit the U.S. and he was really happy. He couldn't stay in the U.S., but he always wanted to because they were mean in New Zealand.
Awesome. Okay, so class, what do we think? Do we think that they treated him like this just because the people in New Zealand didn't like him because he was different?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and write that one on the board. What we'll do, we'll write Amir's story because that's his name and we want to make sure that we give him his name. And we'll go ahead and write on here that he was bullied, okay? So what about in the United States? Does anyone remember that story? Adolfo?
That's the one about the girl police officer who was attacked for being Muslim.
Good. Do you remember the whole story?
Yeah. Yes, she was walking with her son and some man came up and yelled at her to go back to her country and then shocked her son. It was really mean though. The man didn't even know her and just did that for no reason.
Yeah. So for this story, what do we think? Was this a cultural difference or no?
No.
Okay, so the last one that we'll be doing. So the last one that we'll be discussing is the story in Mexico. Let's see, Ivana, do you remember the story? Don't remember the story. That's okay. So let's talk about people who work in the United States but live in Mexico. They get judged a lot. And why do you think that they get judged a lot?
Maybe because people think that they should live in the U.S. if they're working.
Right. And do you guys think that that's an okay way of thinking, or that people should be more accepting?
No.
You think that people should be more accepting, right? I think so too. All right, so now that we have a few things written down on our board, you guys can go ahead and start doing your group work and work more on your research projects, okay? Remember that we're trying to answer this central question. So every story that you find, make sure that it relates back to this question. Okay? Does anybody have any questions before we start?